C10 Talk, episode 130. We're continuing the chassis series with Roadster Shop and Self-Made Fab.
The selling point of all this is that we're really applying all the years of experience that we have in driving these cars and fine-tuning them. And instead of just, being comfortable with the initial product that we came out with and being satisfied with that, we're just pushing.
Damn, son. If you're like me and you want the best possible products for your build, Mar-K Quality Parts has you covered. From side moldings to bedwood and so much more. mar-k.com, and follow them on Instagram too. When you need weather stripping for your C10, don't settle for just any brand. Seal your build right and make sure you request the best. Ask for precision replacement parts from your C10 parts supplier. Demand quality, demand precision. When it comes to upgrading your truck's gauges, look no further than Dakota Digital and their wide selection of direct fit instrument systems. Hit up dakotadigital.com for more information. If you're looking for aftermarket parts for your C10 truck, Pro Performance is your go-to source. They carry the top brands for wheels, brakes, suspension, and accessories. Check them out on the web at azproperformance.com. That's azproperformance.com.
Welcome to C10 Talk, your C10 truck podcast. Here's your host, Ronnie Wetch.
All right. Let's do it. More chassis talk. And we got a good one for you today with Phil and Jeremy from Roadster Shop, and then Brandon from Self-Made Fab. Both kind of more East Coast for us. So you've got Ohio and Illinois. And it was absolute blast sitting down with those guys. So I put those two together. They were kind of next in line. And then you'll have TCI, Total Cost Involved, with Justin, who is Scott's Hot Rods. You'll kind of have to listen to that one to put it all together. And then GSI. So when I kind of put this all together, I thought, okay, I'll limit these guys. Well, it's not going all that well from a limitation perspective. And honestly, when you sit down and you're just hanging out and you're throwing out questions and you've got them on the line, there's just a lot of good information. So the first one, put those four guys together. It seemed a little long, so I'm going to shorten them up. So I've got the two today that you're going to hear with Phil and Jeremy, Roadster Shop, and then Brandon, Self-Made Fab. A little shorter, and then we'll put Total Cost Involved together. They've been in the chassis suspension business for a long time. So has Justin from Scott's Hot Rods. So I was out at the C10 Club kind of get together at Pro Performance, and somebody's like, are you going to get Scott's Hot Rods on there? I forgot all about those guys. So I reached out to Justin. I'm like, hey, man, sorry, but this is what I'm doing. He's like, no problem. Let me know when you want to do it. So reached out to him, got him, and we sat down, and it was a good time. And I didn't know him. I've heard of his product. We had emailed, but I didn't really know the guy. And sitting down, getting to know him, he's definitely a wealth of knowledge and a resource for our industry and for our scene. So Scott's Hot Rods TCI will be 131. And then the GSI boys came down, of course, drank some beers. We hung out, ended up being a lot longer than a 40-minute episode. So I thought I'll push that one out separate. So you'll see that at 132. So 130, you're going to have Roadster Shop and Brandon, Self-Made Fab, and then TCI and Scott's Hot Rods, and then GSI. So I'll get those kicked out, and then you guys can kind of grab them whenever. We're going to head out to Mississippi or Louisiana, kind of right there. Some guys, it's such a close deal, but we're going to head out to the Crawfish Crawl, which is Dead End Garage. That's going to be this coming weekend. So I will try to get 131 out before I leave. I'll probably do some interviews with those guys out there, that whole experience. I know they got some go-kart things they're doing on Friday, and then the crawfish thing all day Saturday, and then we'll head back on Sunday. But a lot going on. Crawfish Crawl, that's going to be April 5th and 6th. And then if you're in Texas, that Texas area, in the Waxahachie, Dallas South area, you've got the Classic Truck Nationals. That's going to be April 13th in Waxahachie. And then let's see what else I have. I got April 28th for you guys up in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. Hit up Northwest C10s. That's going to be on Sunday, April 28th. And then into May, you've got lots of options. May 3, 4, 5, you've got C10 Nationals, Fort Worth at the raceway there. That's a blast. We did that last year for their first one. LS Fest West in Vegas, which also we did their first one 2 years ago. That was a blast. And then Battle in Bama, which is going to happen the same weekend, and that's the C10s of the South. So that's within Battle of Bama. So you've got a lot of options on May 3, 4, and 5. Good weather, awesome trucks, great people. Please take the time to rate and review us. I think last time I looked on iTunes, we were just under 4. If you could reach out to me, Ronnie at C10 Talk, and I can walk you through that. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but rate us, review us, love us, share it. Let everybody know about the pod. Let's keep moving this thing forward. If you have somebody you really want to hear from, shoot me an email, and I'll see what I can do. I've got a list I need to get out and about. I've got Metalox, Kyle. I've got another guy, Solomon, that I met at Dino's all the way back. I mean, it's just so funny how 6 months can fly by. And he's more of a Ford guy, and so I thought we would talk with him a little bit about kind of the Ford scene and the Chevy scene. And he and I had some good debates. It was kind of funny regarding kind of where the scene will be now to 5 and 10 years from now. But I'll reach out and make those guys make that happen. We got tons of shows. I might have to bump them up to like once a week just to kind of get caught up, which I'm not sure if you guys will like that or not. I think you might, but I guess we'll look at the numbers and we'll see. So nonetheless, continuing with our chassis series, totally awesome for these guys to take time, especially Phil and Jeremy, because they were on vacation and they jumped out in the car and put the phone on, made a little recording studio. Brandon, the same thing. I mean, he's like in between picking up his kids from school and not, and we kind of, okay, I'll do it this time. Oh, let's push it back because I got to pick up my daughter. And everybody's busy. So for these guys to sit down with C10 Talk and deliver it to you guys, the C10 Nation, is pretty rad shit. So have a good week. Stay out of trouble. Do what you do. Please take the time to share, rate, and review. And we'll be back next week, 131, with TCI and Scott's Hot Rods. All right, guys. Late. All right. C10 Nation hitting it off with a bang this morning. We've got Phil and Jeremy. Now, if you think back a little bit, and if you haven't listened to the episode, it's like episode 30. I wrote it down somewhere, 38. Almost exactly 3 years ago, we had both Phil and Jeremy Gerber from the Roadster Shop on. Welcome back, you guys.
Thanks for having us, man.
All right, well, a little bit of the cat out of the bag. These guys are on vacation, and I hit them up, and I'm like, dude, I got to get this interview. So kind of just shows you the companies, the suspension companies, and the companies that are involved with the C10 world, the C10 Nation. They're about the people, too, and making it happen and getting this information disseminated out to you guys. So you guys, I appreciate your time this morning. They're in the car, they're hanging out, and their families are probably sleeping in. Well, I guess if you're out east, they're probably almost lunchtime. But let's hit it off. We're talking suspension, and of course, we got to include the Roadster Shop.
Sounds good.
Tell us, let's see here. I'm keeping it kind of uniform. Tell us a little bit about where you're located and how long you've been building chassis.
We're located in Mundelein, Illinois, northern suburb of Chicago. Been building chassis for a little bit over 15 years. Do a little bit of everything from traditional hot rods, high-performance muscle car stuff, and a lot of truck, C10s and earlier Chevys as well.
So, because we can go back and we can look at some of the things that you guys have done over the last 5 years, and then obviously listening to the episode. Is there anything that you guys have kind of been working on that we don't know about your product? So when we look at the fast track or the spec stuff, is there some modification or some things that we don't know about the Roadster Shop chassis?
I think actually right now there's a tremendous amount of modifications that really nobody knows about, because that's kind of our focus in 2019. We've been driving the hell out of these trucks and cars and just piling the miles on it. And our mentality's kind of changed. We're going down a little different road and getting away from not everything needs to be a G machine or, a corner carver or an autocross monster. And we're really trying to fine tune the product for guys that want to get in it and drive the shit out of it on the highway and just enjoy it like an everyday luxury car. So tons and tons of suspension changes. A lot of, shock changes, geometry changes, bushing changes, just really taking it to a whole new level from, the way that I'm looking at it.
For the audience to go back and listen, Jeremy is kind of more of the R&D guy, the guy that comes up with that stuff. It sounds like Phil, and I don't know if this is still how it is, but Phil's the hammer to the metal here type of guy, where it's like, okay, Jeremy's going to come up with it, and Phil's going to find out whether there's a weakness in it. Jeremy, specifically, do you see, is it tough to keep up with the change of, okay, everybody wants a slam truck. Okay, now everybody wants an autocross, like you said, G machine. Okay, now guys just want to cruise their shit and they want the best of both worlds.
It's difficult, but to be honest with you, I just I try to please myself, so as long as I've been in this industry and played around with hot rods and trucks and muscle cars, as I evolve, I try to have the product evolve as well. There was a time when it didn't matter. Suspension was just something that was underneath the car to keep it steady in the trailer. It was show cars, and you didn't even think about really driving the damn thing. And, then it got to, well, these things kind of suck to drive, let's try to make it a little better. And we did that. And then, the autocross thing and, getting into some road racing, that all kicked off. And I think we had a lot of fun with that, but it's just such a compromise of, I don't care who's out there. You look at any of the big names, what's going around that road race course or that autocross course, that's not the same product that you're buying. You can only be so competitive with your off-the-shelf parts. Everybody's getting more and more competitive. So, we want the product that we market to be the product that you get. So we're just trying to drive the things more and more, have fun with them, get some more use out of them. Unfortunately, we're not in Arizona, have the beautiful weather to drive them year-round like you do. So, the little window that we get, I want to daily drive it and drive it like a new car. So it's kind of the mentality we have and the direction that we're going.
And the industry has always seemed to kind of zigzag or swing like a pendulum. It goes show cars, then race cars, then drivers, and back and forth. And we've really kind of hit a little bit of everything, which has helped us tremendously and have a extremely wide, diverse background and understanding all those different areas. So with this new direction, we're able to build, pretty hammered truck that will have great ride quality and still be able to perform on a very high level, and really kind of check all those boxes for the guys who want to do everything with their truck. Because you're not going to, most customers don't have the ability to build a race car and then build a cruiser and then build a patina bag truck. So they want to build one thing that's capable of doing it all. And we've kind of harnessed the knowledge over the last 15 years of doing a little bit of everything to really put it into one package now.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about that. From the Fast Track series to the Spec chassis, are you seeing guys ordering kind of a morphed combination, or is that what we're thinking kind of leading up to 2019, 2020 with that, where you're getting the best of both worlds because you guys have essentially had two different options that, an individual can go, okay, I want this Slam series. I can get into the Spec for, 10K, or I can get up to the Fast Track, and I've got all this knowledge that Roadster Shop has based upon, the drivability of my truck, my car, my vehicle.
Yeah, I guess, so the Fast Track it still is, in my opinion, like the ultimate suspension setup, because it does it all. It's, you can crush it on an autocross course. You can have a blast on a road course, zip, on the highway, go, ripping through corners, and the ride quality's top notch. The Spec, it's certainly more of a price point product, but the engineering honestly, the engineering probably supersedes what's in that Fast Track. More time and money spent in engineering it to get the price down and to make it work. But it's still, that Spec chassis, it still does everything that your average guy is going to want to do. Take that out on the highway, take it through some windy roads. It's going to put a smile on your face. The Fast Track still just offers like a wider range of customization. As guys are wanting to do some crazy one-off stuff, we're able to just manipulate that product a lot more, whereas we keep the Spec lineup, pretty cut and dry, that it's really optioned just a few ways, and pretty much like set platforms that you can get it in.
Moving forward, all the stuff we're talking about for 2019, going to be kind of combination of a new suspension line and then some upgrades and options for the existing product lines to kind of help tailor the ride a little bit to what the customer wants. So we'll be able to still really have a seat for everybody and build something that will accomplish everybody's goals.
Well, I mean, that's exciting. So what can you tell us about the new line? I mean, is it, yeah, I mean, if you can, tell us as much as you can, because this is obviously going to be a well listened to series and episode. And I think the truck market being what it is today, it's crazy. So we'll definitely be looking forward to finding out what we can about this.
Well, the new stuff, I'll slip a little bit of it out there. That some of it's still a little bit under wraps, but we've got some pretty game-changing shock technology that's going to be coming out. So the selling point of all this is that we're really applying all the years of experience that we have in driving these cars and fine-tuning them. And instead of just being comfortable with the initial product that we came out with and being satisfied with that, we're just pushing. Because getting a Ferrari, you can drive it for a month, and I'm sure you'd find yourself wanting to make it better, and it can be better. So that's what we're doing, and it's really grouping a lot of OEM products and using a lot of OEM technology. In the aftermarket, you'll find that there's only so much R&D budget available. So you take a Delrin bushing that we manufacture it in-house because it's, in my opinion, the best available product for our fast track suspension. But some of the OEMs, they spend millions and billions of dollars on that bushing technology. So it's the NVH of the car, what kind of harmonics are coming through it. As we've found that we've satisfied ourselves with the ultimate in ride quality, well, the next thing is taking every single little harmonic that transfers from the road through the suspension, through the chassis, into the cab. So, that's a big focus on the suspension. In addition to that, it's just working with, some styling aspects of it, optimizing track widths and just seeing things where we want to fine tune wheel backspace and wheel fitment. And, that's kind of the majority of it all wrapped up. I think, one of the other highlights of it's just going to be integrating some more OEM feel on the steering side for, probably as long as you can remember, as long as I can remember, the Mustang 2 power steering rack. It's kind of, just the go-to steering rack, which it's a great unit, great steering feel. But as you get up in speeds, you want something that kind of tailors, and getting a new car with electric power steering, it's steering different when you're wheeling through the parking lot than it is when you're going 90 or 100 miles an hour down the highway. So that's something that we're in kind of the final stages of developing, which we're trying to focus on everything that connects the driver to the car, improve the driving experience.
I appreciate you not holding back, and we're going to look forward. When you talk about 19, are you thinking like SEMA, like we're working on it, we're going to work on it throughout the year, and then this is something we're going to release and unveil at SEMA, or is it something like a mid-year thing?
We're not too far off from, it'll be pre-SEMA, and we've got several test vehicles that are just nearing completion that are going to start hitting the road. And, it's always been our style to build multiple vehicles, test the hell out of the product, fine-tune the product, perfect the product, and then go to market with it. We don't want to jump the gun and throw something out there that we've engineered it. Yeah, we know it's going to be a great product, but it's got to be proven and it's got to be sorted before it gets out there. So, I'd say pre-SEMA, we should have something out there.
How hard is that to hold back when you've got customers who are excited, you're excited about new technology, about new advancement, and you just have to continue to get more R&D before you put it to market, you sell it, but everybody's just chomping and waiting, and the anticipation, is out there. How do you guys manage that? Because I think you're probably, from a suspension perspective, one of the unique companies that might have to deal with that, to the level of hype that probably comes with your new products.
I think it really stems from us being car builders first and having to deal with a lot of other crap, for lack of a better word, that's rushed to market. And then you end up being the guinea pig, and it frustrates the hell out of us. And it costs customers money. It delays projects, and just creates a lot of headaches. So we kind of come from that mindset that we don't want to be those guys responsible for putting our customers through it. So rather, push them off a little bit and make sure everything is right, and deliver a product that is ready to go to market and that will actually have the inventory and availability to bring it to market, instead of just kind of throwing it out there and then it's a 6-month waiting list before you actually get it. So we want to be able to deliver on what we're promising.
I'm sure a lot of headaches too, a lot of headaches that you circumvent because of that, and having the patience. And like you said, just some of the things where you've been through it, to deal with, retracting back or recalling products, and then having to, explain to the customer and then redevelop it anyway. So might as well just do it right.
Yeah, for sure. That's what it's all about. And, that new kind of OEM stuff, that's going to be something available, across the board. So really not just focused on the truck stuff, but one thing coming to market for the truck stuff that we've had in R&D for longer than we've had anything else, any other product in the Roadster Shop history in R&D. It's been a tremendous undertaking, and a little bit of information that I'll give you is that it'll make all 4 wheels turn at the same time when you want them to turn at the same time. So a little bit of different spin on the C10 game, the square body game, the Ford game. It's something to give guys a variety. Instead of going down, now you can also go up and have something that's a little more well-versed. So that'll be sliding out here pretty soon.
Man, you're throwing out a lot of teasers, Jeremy.
I'll leave that one as a teaser. I think I spilt the beans on the other one. I threw it all out there, but this is something that we're super stoked about. We've kind of kept it under wraps for a long time. People kind of cruising through the shop have caught a glimpse of it here and there, but something, again, that just puts the fun back into hot rodding and gives people a whole nother genre of truck builds. At some point, I think the market will reach its limit of how many guys want to, slam their C10 or slam their square body or their Ford truck. So something fresh, something fun.
Yeah, I think that's good. And then it's good for us that there's companies out there like you guys that are going to continue to push that and then evolve with, whether the trend is you're evolving with it or creating or, setting that trend because of the availability of products. One thing, you guys have the Fast Track, the Spec, and, your Revo front end. Do you see a lot of disparity or a lot of difference when you look at somebody saying, hey, we've sold this many specs versus this many Fast Tracks when you look back? Because one of the questions I have for a lot of the companies is if they see a lot of back half, front halves versus full frames, whereas you guys are predominantly a full frame company. Can you at least kind of break down the difference that you see in the numbers sold?
Don't have numbers offhand, but I know the spec chassis have probably 10-fold or 20-fold on what we've been doing with the Fast Tracks on the C10 market. It's really a price point, I think, that a lot of people can grasp, and it gives you a whole engineered package that's designed to work together and is all ready to go. Drop your truck on, your motor mounts, your trans mounts, all your body mounts, bumper mounts, core support mounts, all the suspensions in place. You're not cutting apart an original frame and trying to figure out where all this stuff goes, and locating suspension geometry, locating all your motor mounts. It's just in our opinion, a million times easier platform to, put your truck on and get on the road a lot quicker, and you're not dealing with all the shortcomings of an original frame, all the weaknesses in the original frame rails that, guys are left using a 4-foot section of original frame rails and front halving it and back halving it and putting in center cross members and braces. To us, it just looks like a lot of stuff kind of pieced together to make what we're already making.
Yeah, we, before we came out with the the spec chassis for the truck line, we did develop a Revo bolt-in front and rear for the 67 to 72 C10s. And, we put it together and tested it in a demo truck, and it works great. The ride quality is fantastic, but we've actually shied away. We try to deter customers from buying it, and we really don't market it anymore. And the reason being is that just the price point of the spec chassis and the labor, it's a total bolt-in deal, but the labor of putting that into the truck, it's just, it doesn't warrant the cost. It's you still have, like Phil had said, you still have all the compromises of the stock frame, but you've increased the suspension, and you have all the limitations too of the ride height and everything else that comes with it. So that's where I think the spec chassis have shined tremendously. For one, let's say like you're a home builder, you're a guy doing this in your garage. I've been a fabricator for 20 years. To chop up a stock frame, C-notch it, weld this in, weld that in, set up motors, figure out motor angles. Even for a guy with my experience, that takes some effort. That takes some skill. It's not something that your average guy is going to throw some 2x4s on the ground in his garage and take his speed square, and start figuring out where he's going to set the motor and the pinion angles and get all that stuff in there true. So the spec chassis for those guys, instead of spending months struggling, get a couple buddies together and, a 12-pack or maybe a 24-pack of beer. And, you could start in the morning, and at the end of the day, you've got a roller that's hammered on the ground and looks bitchin'. And then for the pro builders, the guys who are doing it for a living, I don't care who you are. It's always, every one of these projects goes over budget, always difficult to hone in and stay on a budget. So if you can get a set price point on a chassis and you're saving a ton of money on labor by just lifting that body off, putting it on and doing the few mods required to install it, either A, you're keeping that project on budget and you're keeping your customer happy, or B, maybe you shaved a considerable amount of hours off that now frees you up to do all the cool things you wanted to do, like, tuck the bumpers, or I wanted to shave the handles, or I wanted to chop the top or build this custom dash. You could lose 100 hours cutting things, welding things, bolting things together before you even start your project. So I think this just helps those guys keep rocking and rolling. It betters their project, keeps them on budget, and another one of the advantages in my opinion.
And another thing that we tend to kind of overlook, but when we're building our spec chassis, we sat down with a clean sheet of paper and designed the suspension geometry that we wanted. We got the ride height, we got the caster camber curves, the motion ratios, everything that we wanted to put into a suspension, and then we're able to build frame rails to it, where starting with the original frame, you're limited by what's already there, and you're kind of handcuffed from the get-go. So this is able to, really be a complete suspension design that is then designed to fit the truck instead of the other way around.
And one thing you guys mentioned really is one of the questions we have for you is price point. And at, starting at right at $10K for a spec, when you factor it all in, you're getting a full chassis. Now, you obviously have the deliverability of it, which is going to be another, probably we're thinking right around about $1,000. Is that what you guys are seeing for shipping one of those chassis?
It's $1,000 to $1,700, depending on where you're at in relation to Chicago. We do a lot of shows all over the country, and we do free delivery at the shows to help guys out. And we're doing, a lot of customer delivery, delivering cars, and doing race events and other things like that, where we can kind of help out with delivery there as well.
Well, and that's cool too, because it's not necessarily something that you, the manufacturer, wants to charge. It's just, obviously, it's part of it. So if you guys, the audience, the nation, if you're listening and you think, hey, I want this chassis, then you coordinate it in advance and know, hey, I can save, $1,000 if I can go take my trailer up to this event, this show, and grab the trailer and grab the chassis from these guys. So that helps out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it helps in that. in that sense, but also, we've got some great dealers out there, and we're continuing to build a dealer network. And, in addition to that, one thing that Phil didn't mention is that the guys who want this thing tomorrow, 9 times out of 10, Summit Racing is stocking it. So they stock pretty much all of our spec lineup. So, we see it all the time. Somebody wants some guys got to have it. Some guys aren't starting on it for 6 months, but the price is right. It's in stock. Wham, bam, pick it up or they'll ship it. So it's as fast as you can possibly get one.
Cool. So tell us, I think we've kind of hit it, but one of the uniform questions I'm hitting is tell the nation why they should choose Roadster Shop over, if you look back at when we did our interview 3 years ago, there might have been probably on one hand. Now you're looking at a solid 2 hands of the amount of companies and options. Why should they choose you guys?
For one thing, I think that people need to really make a wise decision on their suspension manufacturer. We've been at this an awful long time, and the product, even if we don't market it, that product's constantly evolving, improving, and changing as we build more and more vehicles. And to me, that's one of the things that you don't see in our marketing and people don't know, but that's the biggest selling point, that we might build, 50 chassis and then we build another truck and we put 15, 20,000 miles on it, or we're putting it together, and all of a sudden, I'm looking at something and say, man, it'd be great to have a threaded bung right there for my exhaust when I'm fabricating, so I don't have to spend the time drilling and welding that in. So it's all those little things that keep evolving. But, in addition to that, the number one selling point is the engineering and the quality behind it. It's not that difficult these days for anybody to, order up some mandrel bent frame rails and buy some airbags, and you can weld up some control arms, and you're connecting A to B, and you got something that's going to go up and down, and your truck might look cool, but the engineering, just the time spent in tuning and proving that to me is what sets us apart from everybody out there. We do, a huge volume of turnkey vehicles and a sizable volume of chassis, and that volume just in turn, it just keeps making the product get better and better and better, and the product keeps evolving. What do you think, Phil? Yeah, for sure. I'll let you weigh in on that as well.
Well, do you guys have a company that you watch, that you look at? I think one thing that's unique for you guys is when I've asked this question, people have actually said you guys. And when I ask other suspension chassis companies, hey, who do you guys look to? Who's leading the way, and who do you admire from a chassis perspective? And we've had a few say Roadster Shop. Is that do you guys watch anybody?
Yeah, our finger's constantly on the pulse. I know my wife yells at me pretty much every night to get off of Instagram and social media and stop looking at car stuff. But there's a lot of C10 stuff out there. It seems like every week there's a new, C10 crossmember guy or chassis guy popping up and building new stuff, which is great to see that there's the market for it. But, like he touched on, there's a lot of guys that are just, trying hard but don't necessarily have the engineering and the knowledge or the understanding of suspension to know what it takes to make these things go down the road. There's definitely a handful of, guys doing it right that we've seen that are coming up. Think like, GSI and Porterbuilt, both built some really nice stuff. The quality looks like it's there. End product looks like a nice piece, and the competition's good. It keeps us on our toes and keeps us wanting to move forward and continue to build the best product that we can. Don't want to, sit still and get bored with it. So, you need a little push now and again to keep you out there and keep you fresh.
Do you guys think, I think you're in a unique situation with this. Do you think that what used to be the automotive cars were pushing maybe the trucks, but now would you say the trucks have caught up, or have they passed, or where do you see us at from a truck market versus the car market and what you guys are dealing with? Hey guys, have you heard about Marque's new square body molding? Guess what? You could check it out. Squarebodymolding.com. Squarebodymolding.com. Something that's been in the works and it's finally out. It debuted at SEMA 2018 on SSO2. The highest quality trim you can get for your square body. And it gets even better. Right now, you could save $250 off your complete square body molding kit, whether that's short bed, long bed, Blazers, Suburbans, or even crew cabs. That's it. Squarebodymolding.com, pre-sale, painted to match. If you like that 1 year 1977 yellow, they'll have that too. So if you've been looking for the best for your square body trim, head on over to squarebodymolding.com. I use precision replacement parts on my builds because I demand quality and I demand precision. If you want the best weather stripping, demand precision. PRP.com. It's that easy. PRP.com. Seriously, check this out. OEM designed parts. It's easy to install, and you have a lifetime warranty. Everything from windshield seals, rear window seals, door seals, roof rail seals, vent window seals, beltline molding, glass run channels, trunk seals, hood decal. You need it, they've got it. They also have their vent window refurbishing program. You send in your wing windows, and they send them back, and they're completely rebuilt, disassembled, sandblasted, painted, and they replace and install new weather stripping, new glass, and handles. Talk about quality, talk about precision, and that's why I use Precision Replacement Parts. PRP.com. And follow them on social media as well. Would you say the trucks have caught up, or have they passed, or where do you see us at from a truck market versus the car market and what you guys are dealing with?
The truck side's been huge in probably the last 5 years or so. It just keeps getting bigger. I think the price of a lot of the muscle cars has gotten so out of hand that, you know, you can't buy a 69 Camaro for under 30 grand for a starter project, where you can go out and buy a pretty killer patina C10 for, well, now it's probably 10 to 15 grand, but it's a lot more achievable for most people. It's almost like a gateway drug to get you in, get you hooked. But we're doing more and more truck stuff. And, you know, a lot of the higher end car build guys are coming back that they want a truck that's, you know, there's always, you know, my dad had a pickup, my grandpa had a C10, I had a C10 in high school. They're just cool. It's, you know, it's American. It's kind of the opposite of what's going on in the news these days.
Exactly.
It's just, you know, the cool, hardcore, built with your hands, built in America.
Chassis rails are filled with liberal tears, so they can go faster.
I'm gonna have to edit Jeremy up on the volume on that one so we can make sure that we hear that one.
Up or down.
For you guys down, but I'm gonna make sure I edit him up. But that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, the truck market, the truck chassis sales have always been up there. But I think the biggest change is just now they're cool trucks. You know, 10 years ago, we were doing tons of like 48 to 54 Chevys and, you know, 55 to 59s and the F100s. But everybody, you know, a guy would call and like freak out if he had to raise his bed floor. And, you know, we wanted the truck to just look cool, you know, but we found ourselves making more and more like bone stock ride height frame rails and chassis just to, you know, give the customers what they were looking for. But now, you know, it's nice that guys are, you know, more focused on the look, the style, and people don't mind putting a notch in a bed, raising a bed floor, doing what you got to do to make the truck sit right. And we still offer them both ways, but yeah, I think we're selling more and more truck chassis that are going under like proper badass truck builds, which is cool to see.
So there's a younger generation of people building the C10s than the earlier trucks, and yeah, it's kind of who we are. It's what we think's cool. So, you know, we're excited that it's getting more attention and that part of the industry is getting energized.
It's really a great time when you put it that way. If you think back to the, you know, 15 years ago, and let's just say, for example, Nate Porter, and you've got the new drop member and you're putting something on the ground. Well, now if you fast forward all the way to today, you've got a lot of the best of both worlds. It's like, okay, we like how it looks low, but now we need to get it to handle the way we want it to handle. And what you're saying, with as many chassis as you've built and the other 10 C10 chassis companies, the truck companies, and the evolution of chassis has made the drivability and the coolness kind of morph together. And so the consumer really is winning at the end of it all. We can get the best of both worlds. We get the cool look and the drivability.
Yeah. But, with that being said, it's, it's the best time for the consumer, but it's also the worst time for the consumer. I just feel like consumers need to be more educated now, because there's so many people out there that just think, well, Roadster Shop's doing it and Porterbilt's doing it and GSI's doing it. So now, I'll build the chassis, I'll build suspension, So I think a lot of guys have honed in on it and are building some awesome stuff, but you got to do your research is all I'm saying.
Yeah, buyer beware, and that's absolutely why we're looking at doing this, Jeremy, because we want to reach out to these different companies and then let the consumer, do your due diligence, look at these trucks, the trucks that have been on the road, the chassis that have been on the road, and even the chassis that were built by the biggest name builders are evolving, and it does have to evolve, and there's probably nothing, no more. Probably, I don't think that's really the way I should say it, but no more better R&D than, 10, 15, 100, 500 trucks out there on a specific chassis. And then for you guys, for example, the amount of feedback you get, and it's like, all right, well, we fixed that and we're changing and we're evolving and we've got, this much product out there for the R&D perspective.
Yep. Yeah. There's no stress analysis, no engineering software, no, anything that can match just mileage. The seat of your pants feel, the feedback, what you see on the road, that's where the R&D comes in. That's what separates the manufacturers. And we've got I can't even tell you how many miles we've logged and customers have logged on these things. So it's just keeps it getting better.
I think that might be the next Roadster Shop T-shirt right there. The seat of your pants is gonna tell you how your chassis is responding. So let me get into
what you feel, the feedback.
Yeah. That's it. The miles, like you said, the amount of miles. And a lot of times, one thing that we talk about, we notice is sometimes the best part of these builds is when that chassis is sitting there on the showroom floor, the garage room floor, the shady tree, whatever it is. And that chassis sitting there, and it's, we've got the power plant, we've got the big hoops, the brakes, all the lines, the fuel lines, the, air lines, whatever it might be. It's amazing. And it is a thing of art and a thing of beauty when you do see that. And then we cover it up and it's like, well, now does it perform? Once we cover it up and we put those miles on it, how is it going to perform? Because it sure looked rad and it sure looked awesome when it was sitting in the, in the garage.
Yep. For sure.
Okay.
The second wind of the build.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Lightning round, lead time. What are you guys looking at on lead time? You mentioned Summit's got it on the shelf. If somebody wants something more specific, what kind of lead time are they looking at?
All our spec chassis now, we're down to 8 weeks or less. We really ramped up production and are cranking them out. Fast track chassis are about 10 to 12 weeks right now.
The spec stuff we're always running in batch quantities because we kind of have them standardized. So oftentimes when we say 8 weeks or less, if the timing's right, you might be able to grab one of those things like immediately or, 2 weeks out or a week out. So it's just give us a shout and it's always changing. It's always getting better. So just get in touch with our sales team and get you hooked up.
Okay. Coilover or bags? What are you seeing more optioned out on that?
It's kind of shifted back towards coilovers. Initially it was all bags, but I don't know, still a decent amount. I think a lot of guys are getting a little bit tired of doing the bag stuff. There's been a lot of questionable products out there for a while that created a lot of headaches and a lot of issues. So there might be a bad taste in people's mouths, but my truck's bagged. I've been driving the hell out of it. It's kind of been the common myth almost that you'll lose the performance and drivability with bags and you just get the ability to lay it on the ground. I think with our spec chassis and all the engineering that's gone into it, you can drive the hell out of the truck, rip it around corners, have all kinds of fun with bags. But, kind of personal choice. We offer them both ways because everybody wants to put their own spin on it.
Okay. Skill level 1 to 10 on your install, like a spec or a fast track. What kind of skill level? 1 being, I'm saying a battery, and 10 being a custom shop, a lead fabricator guy. Where are you putting the skill level on like a spec chassis?
And I'd say if you get one of our stock ride height spec chassis, which means no floor modifications, I'd say a 3. I mean, anybody that's got mechanical aptitude or knows how to, run some tools, it's
bolting and unbolting.
It's straight up bolt on. When you get into the slam stuff, the bag stuff and some of the lowered coilovers, you might be looking at skill level maybe a 5. I mean, you certainly got to know how to do some welding at that point for modifying the bed floor and modifying the trans tunnel. But it's all super simple stuff. And in addition to that, what kind of could dial that skill level back just a little bit further, maybe we'd be looking at a 4, 4.5. We've actually got, we work off of 3D scans of those trucks. So we have laser cut and pre-bent trans drive shaft tunnels, and we've got some pretty simple floor mod stuff for the beds that makes it much more of a bolt-on. So if guys wanted to go that route, it dials the skill level back even a little bit more.
What state or region are you seeing most of your stuff being sent over to?
Kind of all over. Do a lot down south, a lot in the Southwest, a lot out to California where, guys can use these things a little bit more, but we're shipping them to Alaska, just shipped one to Japan, had 5 of them go over to Indonesia, so it's just all over the place.
Okay. Kind of this last one, when you look at how many chassis from a truck perspective, where you guys think you're at in like the last 5 to 10 years, how many chassis would you say you've built either spec or fast track for C10 market or even just truck market?
Like per year, are you looking at? Or just
some guys,
5 years total?
Some guys are saying,
Are we doing actual numbers or everybody's inflated numbers?
Well, some guys, you got to think about it. Some of these companies are starting out, so they might have, let's just say, under 20 under their belt, right? Where you guys, let's just say, in the last 5 years, how many spec chassis have you fabricated and built for the C10 market?
I'd say between the spec and the fast track, we're probably somewhere north of 500 for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, that's a lot, and that's I mean, when we go back to the R&D, that's kind of where we're at on it. So if you say 100 a year, we're pushing out. I mean, that gives us an idea of there's a lot of chassis being built.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add? Kind of wrap it up. I mean, I really appreciate your guys' time. I know you guys are on vacation with your family, hopefully enjoying some nice weather out there in Florida. What, anything to add, kind of looking back, our 3 years, you guys see so much from SEMA to the car industry to now the crazy truck industry that really is the market of the trucks is amazing. And it's such a fun time and the C10 movement within the truck scene. Any kind of parting thoughts from, so much experience built into 2 guys in the truck?
It's just cool to see the industry keep evolving and changing and, seeing more and different things get built. It keeps it interesting, keeps it exciting for us. We're both insanely diehard car guys. I mean, we live this stuff 23 hours a day, spend an hour with the family here or there. But it's just an awesome time to be in the industry and watch everything just keep growing, getting better. And it's not just from a chassis standpoint. I mean, all the new LS motors and fuel injected motors are making things so much easier and more drivable, and just everything in general is getting better, and it's great for the consumer. You're ending up with a better product that you couldn't build anything near what you can today, say 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great time. So thank you for guys like you, companies like you that are pushing the envelope. I appreciate you guys taking time to sit down with the C10 Nation today.
It's our pleasure, man. Thank you. Thanks for thinking of us.
Thanks, guys. Have a good week. Cranking along. What up, what up? We got Self-Made Brandon and Self-Made Fab. Brandon, welcome to C10 Talk. Welcome to the podcast, and happy to have you on board here, brother.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us, C10 Nation, who you are, where you're located, and how long you've been building chassis, man.
Well, most people know me as Self-Made Brandon on Instagram. I kind of got my start, just tinkering around with mini trucks, like most did, and, I went to Hobart Welding School, and it kind of opened the door for fabrication for me. I always was one to try to build my own trucks myself. I didn't really have the money to take into the big shops around and have them built. So, I always kind of try to do it myself. So that's kind of how Self-Made Fab started. Obviously myself, I just started in a little garage in Dayton, Ohio at my house. And then I got a 4,000 square foot shop now that I opened up a little over 2.5 years ago. And as soon as I got more space, I started opening up my line of products towards the chassis side instead of just sheet metal. A lot of guys know me as from building sheet metal parts, custom parts, mainly wheel tubs and inner fenders. So I kind of started getting into the chassis parts because I needed the parts for builds in my shop, and kind of went from there. So that's basically the gist of it.
So you think, just kind of go back, you kind of started on the chassis stuff. Obviously, you came from the more of the body panel and stuff like that, some of the filler panels.
Right.
But then you're saying, did you just want to grow, or were you just thinking, hey, my customers are wanting more chassis stuff? Or how obviously, because there's a ton of chassis dudes out there, but you're like, hey, I'm a builder. I like to build. I like to weld, and I'm just going to start doing my own thing.
Yeah, pretty much. I had a few trucks that I was building for either myself or customers, and I had the resources here to build my own stuff. And actually, Jason Thorbeck helped me out with getting me the parts, the machine parts I needed, and like ball joint cups and things like that, bushings, to help get me started. And I contacted a couple other companies to kind of help me out with the process. And, I kind of threw a feeler out there on a front, raised cross member kit to see if they would sell. And I had built one for my truck, my square body that I was building. And, I just wanted to see if there was a market for the little guys. She's got Porterbuilt and Roadster Shop and all those big guys that are making them. So, the demand was there. So, I was going to see if, it was kind of just a, see what happens type of thing. And then before I know it, I had 10 kits sold.
Wow. That's awesome. That's crazy.
Yeah, it happened. I think I had 10 kits sold in the first 2 weeks that I came out with them. And then they stayed the same for about the first year. And then this year, the beginning of this year, I redesigned my front cross member kit and went away with the tube arms and did more of a fabricated arm, mostly for looks. And I would say it's a good bit stronger. They're all CNC plasma cut on a 3/16 plate, and all MIG welded, and some of it's TIG welded. They use like the upper control arms. They use Joe's Racing upper cross shafts. So it's still a standard setup as a factory C10 would be, with your cross shaft and your adjustment there with your caster camber and all that. That way it makes it a little more simpler for the user to install it themselves. It's basically I'd say 98% bolt-on kit. The front rack notches are the only thing that needs welded in. Everything else uses factory holes and bolts right in.
So you said you redesigned your cross member. Really, the cross member probably stayed about the same, but you're saying more on the outside, the control arms?
The cross member itself, it stayed the same. The arms changed, and then I came out with a coilover kit, and then there's a little bit different changes in geometry with a coilover kit. Obviously, it's got a different ride height than the air ride kit would have. So there's a few changes there. But I believe my coilover kit gets you about as low as you can go as far as all the rest of the kits on the market. So if you're looking to go low, we have the kit for that. It's set up for 3 to 5 inch adjustable ride heights, and it uses Alden American single adjustable coilovers. They came on board last year, and they supply all of our front and rear coilover kits.
Do you need your cross member with the coilover kit, or is that something that they can bolt on to their stock frame and stock cross member?
No, my control arms only will work with my cross member. However, Alden American does offer a bolt-on kit for those guys, not looking to do a full cross member kit. I believe they have a full bolt-on kit, sort of the same kind of setup as Ride Tech's, I believe.
Will they get as low though with that kit versus your kit?
No, because the problem is the cross member will come into contact with the ground. Yeah, obviously, opposed to it hangs down a few inches below the factory frame. Mine's actually up 1 3/8 above the factory frame at the lowest point. So everything's tucked up pretty tight. That's one of the reasons for having to notch the frame for the rack and pinion. Sure, yeah, makes sense. A lot of guys' kits, you don't need to notch the frame, but then the cross member hangs super low. Some of them are flush with the bottom of the lowest part of the frame. So we try to tuck it up, get it tighter. That way, you're not digging your control arms into the ground when you're riding low.
Well, and for the audience, we just talked about that this will be the beginning of episode 2, the final interview with Spencer for episode 1. We talked about that with the steering, and you have to weld those notches in. But the thing is that the level of the rack and how low the rack is going to be. So you're raising up the cross member, and then you're putting that rack in that space, that 1 to 2 inch space that you have, and then those rack, essentially notches will then be welded in the bottom part of the frame there. So a little bit of fabrication going in there. Now, what else do you guys offer? I mean, I've kind of been trying to keep my questions pretty consistent. We went from some of the, going from sheet metal, obviously going over to the suspension, and then kind of, developing your coilover stuff. You guys sound like you've definitely broadened your horizons in the last few years that you kind of been in business.
Yeah. I try to anything that I'd say I'd want that I know I could build, I just go ahead and try it. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it'll take me a few tries, obviously, with trial and error and everything. And I hate being limited of resources around, and I try to, always for myself is save $1, put in my own toy. So, I used all my own to, build my own trucks. A lot of shops will build their own trucks for themselves and show them off. Yeah, I'd love to do that, but right now I'm using them basically as jigs to build all of these parts off of, from sheet metal to the chassis parts. And then from the front cross member kit, so we have that coilover or air ride, and then we also have a rear kit. I'll start with the coilover one. The coilover one's a basic parallel 4-link with a panhard bar. Uses Alden American adjustable coilovers. It comes with all your brackets and C notches and everything. It's about a 80% bolt-on kit. The notches need welded, and then obviously the axle brackets need welded. And then we have an air ride kit for the rear to go with the front cross member. The old kit used to be a parallel 4-link with a Watts link bag over axle setup, and I just recently did away with that to go with a more user-friendly bag on bar, triangulated 4-link setup. It's a lot easier to install as it uses all factory holes in the frame to align. There's 3 different cross members. Starting at the front one, the front cross member will use the rear bolt holes of the rear cab mount. That way it'll line it up, and there's just only a couple holes you have to drill on each side. So you got that cross member, and then moving back towards the back of the truck, there'll be a bag and upper link bar cross member that uses the front, or the middle bed mount holes. So that lines that up, and then you weld the C notches in, a standard step notch. You weld those in, and they have slugs welded inside the C notches where the center bridge will bolt directly in, and then there's a rear one in the back that bolts in.
So that's,
and then it's just it's a bag on bar. The lower bar has the bag on it, and then it's a triangulated 4-link with a double adjustable heim joints, right hand and left hand thread for the upper bars, so you can adjust them without taking any bolts out.
So why'd you go
get your pinion angle?
Why'd you do that versus the Watts?
Well, the Watts, they're kind of, it wasn't a bolt-on kit. It was more of, I sent you the bars and the tabs, and you kind of, put it together yourself. Some guys would have trouble or would have to, take it to a shop and have that done. Obviously, because, if you don't weld it in the correct spot, you're not going to have the correct suspension geometry. So I just wanted to make something that was a little easier to install for the customer. I also think it looks a lot better, and it'll get about 3 inches more lift than the traditional bag over axle setup that we had. Still using the same bags. We use Airlift 2600s all the way around on both kits. So yeah, basically just to make, just to evolve and take things to the next level. I believe I always try to keep progressing and never just keep building the same things. And, at least every year I try to change the designs of what I'm building, whether it's wheel tubs or front rear suspensions.
C10 Nation. Let me tell you about my buddies Travis, his dad Jack, a.k.a. Dad, and Nick. They run Pro Performance, AZ Pro Performance. They're active in our community. They're C10 guys. They're always working on new stuff, like their new suspension line, React Suspension. They're master dealers for AccuAir, Dakota Digital, Bear, Boyd Welding, Vintage Air, and many more. They're C10 specialists and stock many fast-moving products backed by their stellar customer service. Not only do they sell C10 parts, but they live and breathe C10s and are very active in our community. Like I said, look for them at your next truck show. Nick might be there if they let him out, but usually Travis and his dad, Jack, and they want to talk to you and help you out with your C10 project. Follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and you can also check out their Facebook group called C10 Addiction. So check them out and let them know that I sent you. You've heard me talk about my gauges, Dakota Digital. I love them. Don't forget the interior of your build. Dakota Digital has the best gauges for our trucks. Whether you want a direct fit into the stock bezel or something custom. These kits are complete with sensors for any engine. The new RTX series is really incredible. I think it stands for retro, but it should stand for rad. They look just like the stock clusters, but have all the technology you'd expect from Dakota Digital. You can change the lighting colors, customize the reading in the message centers, and do it all from the mobile app. That's right, the HDX and RTX series have Bluetooth technology, so you can mess with them from your phone. Just don't do it while you're driving. I mean, literally, I can have Yellowstone. I'm looking at RPM, trip odometer, percent fuel, oil pressure, and now I have the GPS set up. I can tell you direction, elevation, and even outside temp. Damn, son, it's like a modern truck, but even better in a classic. Dakota Digital is absolutely the best in aftermarket gauges, so check them out at dakotadigital.com. dakotadigital.com. And you can follow them on Instagram and Facebook too. So just to kind of clarify, I got like 1,000 things running through my little brain. Most guys seem like they're going with Watts. You're kind of going back to like a panhard.
I'm going back against it because I'm just not a fan of them.
Okay, I'm just kind of wondering, what your thoughts are on it.
Right, and like I said, of course I could make a complete bolt-in setup to where no one had to, the customer didn't have to weld the Watts brackets and everything in.
The other thing too,
but
you kind of have a C notch that's welded, right? So I was thinking, well, why doesn't he? Because there's a lot of bolt-in options there you could go with. So you're on one hand you got a welded issue with the Watts. So you're going with the panhard, and then you're saying, okay, well then I've got the C notch. So I'm just the great thing about audio is trying to paint that picture, and then another thing is you've got go with that. So you got the bolt in, so you can kind of go with the panhard, but then you've kind of and there's obviously a lot of options where a guy can get a C notch that's bolted in. I mean, one of our buddies, Jason, at Dead End Garage, makes a killer bolt in. So there's lots of options out there, and you're just trying to depends on what your comfort level is. You got a welder or you got a buddy that can weld, then here you go. If not, then you're going to be searching out, drill bits and grade 8 bolts.
Yeah, and with the new rear airbag kit, I'm pushing towards making the C notches bolt in using factory holes. I'm not there yet. The kit's not available yet, so it's not finalized. That may be changing, but other than that, the only thing that's welded in right now is the C notches and the axle brackets.
Okay. Well, and the front notch, right? The front, your rack notch.
And then the front for the rack notch. Correct. When I did away with the parallel kit with the Watts link, I thought, I was gonna do a bolt-on back half kit where you just chop your frame off and you line it up and you stick it together and bolt it together. I might do that later on down the road, or my plan is to do full chassis soon. Within the next 6 months, I'm gonna get a full chassis under one of these trucks. It'll start with 63 to 72 frames.
Well, you seem like you're right there. So for the audience, you're saying that you're going to tear out your rear cross member, your trailing arm cross member. You're going to yank that out, and then Self-Made creates, not only that cross member you're going to put back in. It's going to allow you to have your trailing arms. Then you've got 3 more, right? There's almost 4 total if you count the back one that doesn't really do much, but you've got a back one, you've got the bag set up or the C-notch set up, then you've got almost between the C-notch and the rear trailing arm cross member, you've got like what normally would be to me like almost a shock mount cross member right there that's in front of the rear end, depending. Right. So it's like working my way from the cab back. I've got number 1 trailing arm cross member, number 2.
Yep.
Kind of a shock.
Back.
Yeah. And then you've got
the middle one. Yeah. The middle one will be for, it'll hold the upper back bracket and the, front triangulated upper 4-link bars.
Okay. And
it'll hold that. And then there'll be one over top the axle as the old one housed the bags.
Where are the shocks mounting to?
The shocks will be off of that.
Number 3?
That bridge in the, okay. Number 3.
Okay. And then number 4 is just kind of tying it all back together in the back.
Just a bolt-in setup. It has our logo in it.
So really,
a lot of times the rear ones are always bent on these trucks.
Oh, so for sure. There's not much there.
I threw that in just to to kind of add to it. I see the other guys doing it, and got to keep up with the Joneses, right?
Well, so really at this point, if you're going to go with a back half, you're just kind of formulating or fabricating your own frame rail that's going to incorporate those 4 cross members and everything else you've already done with that, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're missing.
Yeah. If I get to that point where I choose to do, a full bolt-on back half, it'll utilize all the parts I've already designed. It'll just give you new frame rails. That way there's no notch that's welded in. it's all one piece.
So one of the questions I've been kind of asking, people is like, are you seeing more full chassis builds versus front and back half? You're not to that point yet. So let me throw this question out to you as a guy who's getting into it, a smaller guy, keeping up with the Joneses. What's the hardest part about a small guy, based out of Ohio that's working against some big dogs like Roadster Shop, Chop and Block, Porterbuilt, GSI, and some of these big dogs? What are you seeing? What's some things that you're beating your head up against the wall?
Just trying to keep up with the big guys and what they're doing as far as pushing our scene and all that with all the modern amenities we have now for these trucks. And basically it's just I hate sounding like I just want to keep up or follow what they're doing. I don't necessarily want to follow anyone, but I do. I'd like to be big like that someday. I am the small guy, and I'm doing. I say we. It's basically just me for everyone out there. I have one helper. He's just a helper, so it's just me building all these parts right now. And I would like to have a team of welders. Getting parts done, getting frames built for me, and that's the goal, to kind of get to where, Roadster Shop, Porterbuilt, GSI level, and I talk to Scott from GSI from time to time. He's a real cool dude, and I'm amazed by the work that they do. I love their stuff. And like the guys from Porterbuilt, I've installed several of their suspensions on customers' trucks, and it's great stuff. So, I was like, well, I would like to do that. And so I'm doing it.
How do you keep it all straight, Brandon? How do you keep, because you do a lot of shit, especially if it's just one dude. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it's difficult. And on top of that, I have 4 kids under 9. So they're usually here at the shop with me every day after school. But yeah, it's hard to keep it all together, but I love it. I really do. My kids love it. I dreamed to have my own shop when I was a kid. That's all I did was, look at mini trucks and trucking magazines and draw pictures of trucks and all that. And then, when I got a little bit older, I got a welder in my dad's garage, and, I was tinkering, and, one thing led to another.
Well, it's good for our scene. Guys keep pushing it, and you're pushing it. And for the audience, if you want a filler panel, if you want some suspension components, you can check them out, Self-Made Brandon. Give us some numbers on cost here. So some of the different options, what are you looking at? What's the audience thinking about for some of those numbers?
The front air rod suspension is $24.99 plus shipping. The coilover suspension is $29.99 plus shipping. The coilover 4-link rear suspension is $23.99 plus shipping. And then I haven't finalized the price yet on the new one because it's not done for the rear air rod kit, but it's going to be around between $26 and $28.99 plus shipping. And then anybody that wants to buy front and rear kits together, of course, always package deals available, whether it's free shipping or whatever. But I'm always down to help somebody out if they want to, invest with me and buy. I get guys that'll buy a full suspension and a full sheet metal kit all at one time, and I'll give them a great deal on shipping or give them a certain percentage off. That way, they're spending a lot of money and I'm very appreciative of someone that wants to spend that money and have all of my parts on their truck. It's pretty cool to me.
What kind of lead time are you looking at? With you just being the solo, the solo guy cranking it out, what kind of lead time are let's say a guy does that. He buys a package deal, he gets a couple filler panels, he gets a front air system, back air system, the full setup. What kind of lead time are you at right now?
If you were looking at getting a full kit, it'd probably be around the range of 12 weeks or so.
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing I do get flack about is wait times. But yeah, like I said, I'm one person. I work every day, all day, as hard as I can, as fast as I can, and as efficient as I can. And obviously I have to build a quality product, not just throw some crap out the door. But a front kit is usually 6 to 8 weeks at the most. Unless, I say Black Friday, I get hit for Black Friday. And I had, I think 12 kits ordered in 2 days. So when I get orders like that, I kind of do them all together. That way I'm not doing one and then doing another and doing another, because they were all ordered at the same time. So I try to get them all to ship out at the same time.
Sure.
So therefore, obviously, around the holidays or whenever I do say, a big sale or something, that happens. But during like the summertime, I can get cross members out within a week or two. It just kind of depends on what's going on at the time. But I tell people all my wait times are listed on my website. And, if they go over that, they get a hold of me. I explain what's going on and keep them in the loop.
What kind of deposit do you ask for, require?
On if I do, say, like a custom job where it's not on my website, usually half down.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're ordering parts off my website, you have to pay all up front.
Okay.
When you order it.
Are you seeing more coilover or bag setups now? What kind of orders are you looking at?
Mostly bags.
Okay.
And mostly 63 to 72. I've done a lot of those lately.
Isn't it crazy? They're still out there. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a ton, man.
Yeah, they're still out there.
I tell you what, the 60 to 66s, that's why I dug mine out of the corner and started coming up with new parts for it, because that's all I've been getting orders for. My front 60 to 66 sheet metal kit, I mean, they sell, I probably sell one a week.
Yeah.
And that includes, inner fenders and firewall shavers and core support covers. And then obviously my rear tubs, I sell a lot of those. But yeah, as far as the chassis stuff, the front cross members, those sell, that's what I sell the most of, is the air ride kits.
Okay.
For the front.
So one of the questions I've been kind of asking is from a skill level, 1 to 10, 1 being, installing a battery, it's kind of hard to put a level on it, but 10 being Delmo, what are you putting at your kits, suspension wise? So either a front or a back, where are you putting some of that skill level?
The front, I mean, anyone with basic knowledge of turning wrenches can install it. Like I said, it's 98% bolt on. And then it's just a couple measurements from the, there's a bracket that bolts to this, they bolt to the side of the frame that houses the bag and the upper control arm. You just measure from that bracket forward. And then you mark your center mark there and put your notches in for the racking pinion. Other than that, everything else is bolt in. Sometimes you have to ream holes a little bit.
Sure.
But other than that, it uses all factory holes. So, I mean, for instance, my helper has zero experience with working on cars. He's a welder, and he has no experience. He can bolt one of these full kits up, because I usually test fit. Anytime I do any changes, I test fit everything to a frame, obviously, make sure it works and everything's good to go. And he can bolt one up in under 20 minutes, I think. Everything tight and put together.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's pretty simple. The rear, we changed that. Like say the coilover, the 4-link rear coilover kit, it'd probably take, you and your buddy, a weekend to install. As far as welding the notches together and welding the axle brackets and getting it all lined up and everything. The same with the rear. I would say a weekend of time. Skill level, everything's there, and it works together, so it's pretty easy to put together. Now, on the other hand, if you can't weld, you shouldn't attempt to do it. I always strongly urge people to have, it professionally installed if they're not competent to do so. That way.
Yeah, the welding is the asterisk for most guys. It's whether or not that front notch and that rack notch, and they can get that in, or the back half.
Yep. And the rack notch, it's pretty easy. It's just a couple cuts and a few welds there, and that's not too much. But yeah, it's the C notch, welding the C notch together to the frame and all that, and cutting it all out. It could be kind of intimidating to most average hobbyists.
Yeah, I think that's the key for most guys, is right there in that parameter, whether or not they're welding. But most guys will have a friend or a shop that they can take it to, and something to consider. Does that come with a rack, and does it come with all the hardware?
It comes with all. It does not come with a rack, and it doesn't come with ball joints or spindles, but it comes with all hardware and bushings for the lower control arms.
What spindles are you recommending when you are?
I use 73 to 87 spindles, but it will work with earlier model as well. And my front setup, it's on a 3-inch spindle. It'll lay a 30-inch tire, actually a 30.5, but I claim a 30. With a 2.5-inch spindle, it'll lay a 265, 35, 22, 29.3 or 5-inch tire.
Is your geometry changing to push to center that tire up, though?
Yes.
On those control arms?
The wheel, when it's aired out, and all the way down, is perfectly centered in the wheelhouse. And then it narrows the track width on each side. So obviously you have more steering clearance from your fender for low ride height. Even with a stock spindle versus like a CPP modular? Yeah, you could put, stock spindle. With a stock spindle, I've never used the CPP spindle. Doesn't that move it in hair? Yeah, inch and an eighth or something, I think, right there. Most guys do actually run the CPP modular spindle because of that. They want to tuck everything in and then get some a little bit more steering, so that's why they prefer to have that modular spindle. I set mine up. I usually use McGaughy spindles. Mm-hmm. And I use 73 to 87. I set mine up off their 2.5-inch drop spindle, so it will clear. On a like my coilover kit on the front is the lowest is 3.5 inches from the the frame to the ground. So that's pretty low. If you're running a 20-inch wheel, let's say 245, 40, 20 or 20, on the front, it tucks, good 3 inches of tire, and you still have lock-to-lock steering radius. And which is what they want. The guys are going to want that. The key is you're not using a factory spindle, whether it's 67 to 72 or a McGaughy spindle at 73 to 87. You're using a 2.5er. Right. And then, say if a guy's running a smaller wheel, you can get away and still lay frame with a stock spindle. Yeah, so you just can't go too small. You can't run no 15 or anything, so you're going to be 17 No. Yeah, something like that. But depending on what they're going to run and what brake they're going to run and everything else. And those are the things that all have to factor in. So for the audience, you're going to kind of hear that as we evolve through these chassis episodes. Start at the tire, start at your wheel, and know how high, how tall, how wide, where you're going to be, then your brake, and then you're kind of building it outward, inward, and then you'll know, like, okay, well, does Self-Made make that? Is that going to work? Is Porterbuilt, chop and block? Where am I going to be? And what am I going to have to consider as I put this all together? So the hardware does come with everything? Is that one? Okay. Yep. It all comes with grade 8 hardware and lock nuts, so nothing will come loose. Okay. And then I have a motor mount option that's extra for small block, big block Chevy, and LS motors. Haven't got to the LTs yet or anything. I'm not very familiar with those as far as motor mounts, but as far as all the most of my sell are with small block Chevy or LS mounts. So I have those. They have urethane bushings that I get from Jason Thorbeck. Let's see. What region are you shipping most of your stuff? Texas and California.
Yeah, seems to be the predominant.
That's where almost everything goes.
Okay.
And then I also have that goes with my front kit. It is extra. We have a steering linkage bump steer kit, so you can adapt your 79 to 93 Mustang rack and pinion to your C10 spindles.
Okay, yeah,
you do have to drill out your spindles to accept a 5/8 grade 8 bolt.
Which they're going to probably have to do anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Most guys can do that at their house with, if you got a carbide bit and a grinder or a step bit and a 5/8 drill bit, you can knock that out pretty quick. And it obviously left-hand thread, 3/4 inch high with misalignment spacer, with a 9/16 bung on the other end for the rack. Comes with the hardware and everything you need to get your steering going.
Well, and that's important. So those are all things. I'm sure you probably have some killer links on your website. Let us know where can they find you.
It's www.selfmadefab.com.
So no hashes, no spaces, just selfmadefab.com.
Selfmadefab.com.
And then on Instagram, you've got a couple different handles.
It's Selfmade Fab is my one. There is underscore between the Selfmade. It's Selfmade Fab MFG, and then Selfmade Brandon. There's 2 underscores between Selfmade and Brandon.
Okay, so selfmade_fab_MFG manufacturing. And then let me go back here. So it's selfmade 2 underscores together, Brandon. So you can check them out, Selfmade Brandon, with 2 underscores in between. It'll pull it up. Selfmade Fab Manufacturing, and then selfmadefab.com. You can check them out. Brandon, thanks for taking time to sit down with the C10 Nation, sit down with C10 Talk. If you want filler panels, if you want suspension components, check them out and do your due diligence. Small companies like you keep pushing it, you keep pushing the scene, and it's cool to kind of get that mini trucking vibe out of you as well. So, Brandon, continued success. I don't think you're going to have that 5th kid because you don't have time for that shit, dude. You got to keep grinding and keep making shit happen. So
no more kids.
Keep it up, and I think I'll be hitting you up on some 66 stuff. I've got a 16-year-old who he just can't get that firewall clean enough. So, but that'll be another episode. Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. And if you need anything from me, just keep me in the loop, man.
I will. I appreciate it, man.
Okay, buddy. Take care.